In this program, we're going to actually look at how you can use an if-else statement to get a grading program to give a actual grade for a student. So we have a couple things to consider. One is, what are the grading criteria? And two, what are the valid input? So we're going to start off with just a simple valid input. Later on, when we do functions, we'll have a program function that you can call that says, okay, I need a number between X, and it will force the user to put in that number. Here, we're just going to check to see if it's valid. If it's not valid, then we're going to tell the user that you messed up. And then we could use an exit statement to exit the statement, but we're not going to, especially after I said it's not always a good idea to use exit. So let's start off with an integer, and we'll call it grade. And remember that we're initializing it to 0. So we're going to simply get a grade for a user. So let's just go cout. Please enter a grade between 0 and 100. Now I'm doing something that I would normally not do, and that's putting in literals into a statement. So we have 0 and 100, but the problem with that is, what happens if we give 5 points extra credit? Then we'd have to go back and change the criteria every time we use the word 100. We'd have to go back there and change it to 105. And then we go, oh, I decided we're not going to do that. Then you have to go back and change again. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create two constants. We do constant int. Remember, it's easy to just type in constant and forget the data type. So we'll do min grade, and whatever the min grade's going to be, which would be 0. Then we're putting in a comma, and max grade, which will be 100. Then you would comment all what these things are. So we'll leave that to you to comment. So now what we need to do here is get rid of the 100 and get rid of the 0. I'll put it here, and then I'm going to put now notice I'm putting a space before and after the word and. Now, one thing to be careful of is I could use the word max, but max is already predefined, so it's really not a good idea to use min or max. So let's just stick to max grade and min grade, or min whatever and max whatever. Now there's one other issue I want to put in here, is just put in a space in here, and then we'll do a cin, and we'll get our grade. So now this is a good idea to test it. Let's run it and just see. It should say, please enter a grade between 0 and 100. And let's see what happens here. And it does. See, so now we have a little bit of cosmetic issues. So this is a good idea to fix it. Now, what I usually do is I leave this screen on, and I just go and fix it right there while it's fresh in my memory. Now, if you have version Visual Studio 2019 and you try to compile it, it's going to give you an error, and the error will be cannot open something for writing. and that's because you have the grading program open. 2022 allows you to do it, which may be a good idea, maybe not, but so just bear in mind, if you get that error, just check to see if you didn't close this in here. So we're not going to worry about that right now. So now what we need to do is check to see if the grade is valid. So that's the first thing you're going to do. We're going to run the program twice. And we're going to run it first with an invalid grade, and then we're going to run it with a valid grade. Now, you might be saying, why am I using an integer instead of an unsigned integer, which would not allow me to put in negative numbers? And that's a great question. The answer is, what happens if the user types in -5 by accident? So here you run into an issue. So for right now, let's just stick to the signed integers, and we're good to go. So what we'll do here is we'll do a simple if statement. We're going to do if. So there's two conditions. For it to be valid, it has to be greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 100. So we need to decide, are we going to check for something invalid or we're going to check for something valid? So for this particular one, let's just start with checking for valid. So the grade has to be greater than or equal to min grade. And then we have the and. Grade is less than or equal to max grade. And right off the bat, let's put these in here. And then we're going to put if. Now, if you have nested ifs, then it's always a good idea to do this. So that way it's always clear. But, again, if is usually sufficient. Again, personal preference. I don't normally do this unless I have a whole bunch of nested stuff in here. So it's kind of going to be your call which way that you want to do it. But I highly recommend that you clarify what it is. So now, if we type in 50, that qualifies that it's greater than, but it also has to be less than 100 or equal to 100. That's why we can't use an or. So we have to be very careful. Likewise, if we wanted to check for an invalid grade, if we put if grade is less than mid grade and grade is greater than max grade, that will never happen because it can't be both less and it can't be more as well as less. So there you would use your or. So again, it's your preference which way to do it. I don't have any particular preference. I just do it kind of the way it makes more sense to me. So what we're doing here is we're checking to see if it's a valid grade. So if it's a valid grade, we're going to put in cout good job. And now we need an else. And we'll just put else here. And let's go and put cout. Of course, if I could spell, that would be good. Not a good grade. Spelling does count, by the way. So this should work now. So we're going to run this twice. The first time we're going to type in a good grade. The second time we're going to type in a bad grade. Now, notice that we have a little red squiggly line here. So we can stand there and compile it and hope that it goes away. However, it's not going to go away because we're missing a semicolon. So before you compile, look to see if there's any red squiggly lines. And if you are, hold your mouse over and it usually tells you what to do. A lot of times you can click here and it'll give you an answer. And in this particular case, it tells you what's actually wrong, which is pretty neat. So let's go and compile it. And we'll start off with a bad grade so that we can end on a good grade. So let's type in 101. And it says, okay, not a good grade. So you might think, okay, it works just fine. We don't have to worry about that. But what about negative numbers? Let's check a negative number. So now we need to check. Let's check in -5. See what happens. Not a good grade. So that's good. Now let's check and see. A good grade. So we're going to check. And it's always a good idea to check the limits 0 and 100. And I'll show you why. So let's type in 100. And good job. So we have some cosmetic issues here. So I'll fix that here. Put a couple of these here. Now, I messed up. I forgot to put equal sign here. So this is why you always want to test the limits. So let's click on here. We'll type in 100. Uh-oh, not a good grade. I don't understand why. So here's also something you can put in your programs. I do not know for sure if it works on a Mac. It may or may not. But if you put in a backslash, which starts a sequence, an escape sequence, and an A, that means ring your computer's bell. So, and it'll make it like, it's called an alert. Just like the /n is a new line, this is an alert. So let's run it. We'll do the same thing again. Only this time, we'll do a negative number. And we'll do 102. Okay, so hopefully you heard all that stuff. So now it's a good grade. It's not a good grade. So let's fix this here. And now let's test it again with 100. So we're good here. So that works out really good. So now when we run this program, I'm going to actually type in a good grade and I'll save this program. We're going to go back to this program when we start doing functions and we start doing error checking in functions. So let's go and start the grading process. So we're going to do a simple check with a grade. We cannot use a switch for a grade because with a switch, it has to be a specific number, such as you can't do something like this. Switch, grade, and of course you're going to do the start and the bracket. Now I'm putting this in here because we're going to delete it in a second. And I do case greater than, let's say 90. Well, you can't do this because it just doesn't work with a switch statement. It has to be, I could do case 90, but because that means it equals 90. But you cannot have a range of values inside of a switch statement. So when we get more comfortable with switch statements, you'll understand that. Especially if you try to do it, it's going to give you a nasty message. So we need an if statement. So let's go if grade is greater than or equal to 90. Then we'll do, so now we need a letter grade. So we need a character here. and then we'll do letter grade equals A. When we finish this, we will come back to this in a separate video, and we'll start inputting some constants to make it a little bit more readable and a little bit more easy to change. But now we don't need to worry about it in here. So now we're going to go and do else if. So if you don't remember, is it else if one word, else if two words? See what happened. Now notice we got this ugly red squiggly line here. So let's try else if. So you're not going to be able to remember everything. If you did it right, it should turn purple, depending upon what you're using. So else if grade is less than, greater than or equal to 80. So my question is, and the answer is no, why do we not need to check to see if it's less than 90? So that's the question. So I'll give you a minute to think about it. And let's see if anybody can come up with it. If you do, put it in the chat window. If not, I will share it with you momentarily. So my question is, in the first if, we don't have to worry about 100 because we already know that we're not going to allow bad input. So if it's 105, we don't really need to worry about that. But what about if they type in something like 85? Do we need to check to make sure that it's a B is between 80 and 89? Do we need to check to see if the grade is less than 89? So the answer is either yes or the answer is no. And the answer actually is a big fat no. The reason being is because we're already checking that it's over 90 here. So if it's over 95, say, then this is going to execute. We will never get to this else here. So we don't need to check it. And the rest is going to be going down the line. Else if, and I probably should just copy and paste it and then just make the changes. Greater than 70. Letter grade equals C. And let's see. So we have 70 to 60, and that will make the letter grade equals D. And then now we have to determine what is failing. So what we could probably do here is an else, but we could put here as a 0. Now, and then it's F. So you're probably saying, why are you doing this when you've already made sure that? Now, you do not have to do this. This is how I program, but this is just free information. If you are programming, your program has to be right 100% of the time. If I mess up on my error checking, I may get a grade that's less than 0. So I can put here else, and I'll just put in comments here, just in case. And then I can put C out, invalid grade. And then I'll just put in letter grade, equals. Now, because it's a character, I can get and play a little games here and put a question mark. So now here's the advantage of the fact that I put brackets. If I did not put brackets, then the letter grade equals this would be automatically done. It would be automatically exited. So now we can do C out. You have gotten a grade of and then we'll do an end L. And hopefully everything's good. So let's take a quick look at this. We did some error checking in here. So when we come back on our video, we're going to create a Boolean variable to check this. And right now we're just doing an if-else statement here, not a good grade. So we're checking to see if it's greater than 90. Sometimes I will put in here if grade is greater than highest grade. So let's go and change this greater than min grade. Because if I decide to change this to 1, because I'm using min grade, I don't have to change this. I don't have to change this. And I don't have to change this. If I put in 0, 0, 0, I would have to go back and change every single one there. All right, so here we're good here. Let's run this program and we'll start off with a negative and let's go and see what happens. Now, the reason this program is going to run is because I have the if statement in here, and if it's a bad grade, I'm not doing anything. So what's going to happen is it's going to try to evaluate a bad grade. So now you can kind of see why I'm doing what I'm doing. So let's go and run it. And we have, let's start out with -5. And let's see what happens. So it says, oh, not a good grade, invalid grade. You have gotten a grade of that. So we know that that's worked. Now, if we had done error checking and done our job properly, this would never have ever. I'm going to put in an end L here. Let's run it again to see how that works. Only this time, we're going to put in -7 for no other reason. Okay, not a good grade, invalid grade. You have gotten an F in there. So now you see the importance of that. However, that should never, ever, ever, ever happen. So let's recap real quick. And our recap shows that we are doing a grade. We have a letter grade. We have a lot of things that we can do to make this program better. But for right now, it's working. We're telling the user what to put in. Notice that there is no end L at the after this, so that it's going to make sure that everything's on the same line. Now we're checking to see if our grade is here. To check to see if it is, it's good. If not, it's not a good grade. So then now we're checking which is going. Now, the question is, why are we starting with 90? And the answer is what we were talking about before. You always want to start with the highest. Because if I start with if grade is greater than, say, 60, and I didn't have this grade is greater than min grade, what would happen is, well, if I type in a 99, then it is definitely higher than 60. It's going to assign it a D, and none of this other stuff will be executed. So you want to make sure you start with the highest first and go all the way down. And that is it for this. So what we'll do in our next video, we will change it to a Boolean to check to see if it's a valid grade. And then we will also, in either that video or a later video, we will start putting in some other constants for the grades and things of that nature. And when we do arrays, we will actually be able to use this to put in a grade for it. It's very simple, really easy. So that is it for this video. Hopefully it's helpful for you.